Any guessing?
Oh no, I'm going Chiefs, and I'm gonna have to go with the Rams, man. I just can't be picking Jimmy Garoppolo, dog. I just can't do it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening wherever you get your podcast. Rate us, review us, give us 5 stars. You only give us 4 stars. I'm inclined to believe you are a hater. It is Foxworth Friday. Domonique Foxworth, what's going on?
Nothing. Excited for, our second to last weekend of real football?
Yeah, man. By the way, you killed it on Back on the Record with Bob Costa, just so you know.
It was good. Everyone should watch it. I don't know if I killed it or not, but I was happy to be there. It was fun.
Yeah, now thank you guys, by the way, for watching on YouTube. Always greatly appreciated when you do that. But no, we had a good time with that. If you guys check it out on HBO Max, there's a panel with me, Domonique Foxworth, and Howard Bryant, the kind of right time takeover over there. You know what I'm saying? We got in there, made that happen. We had, I guess you and I talked a little during the games, but, you know, hyperbolic tendencies people have. It still may have been like the best divisional round ever. I can't really think off the top of my head to another one. Like I've never really given this that much consideration, but damn, it was a great weekend of football.
Man, that final game, when I'm watching the replays, like if I turn on ESPN or if I'm on ESPN, they'll show plays from the game that at the time when they happened, I was like, man, that's an iconic play. I'm never going to forget it. But I'd already forgotten it because like 4 other iconic plays in just that Chiefs-Bills game happened after that. Like it just was, I don't know. Who cares whether it's the best ever or not? It was a good damn weekend.
Yeah, like I think, so for example, Rams-Bucks was a great ending, but not necessarily a great game. Titans-Bengals was not a great game. It was a close game. And it had an ending, and the victors wound up being something that we find to be interesting. And then we go from there. I did think that the 49ers and the Packers was a good game, low scoring, though it may have been. Like I found it to be good. I found it to be entertaining, you know, all of that stuff. But yeah, that last game, that right there, that fourth quarter was just like, oh my goodness. Like I don't have a comp. Like I'm not going to, I guess, the greatest football game I've ever seen. But it might have been.
Yeah. I mean, I don't care, honestly, to like figure out whether it's the greatest game or not. Like, did I like it? Yes. Am I happy to have experienced it? Absolutely. Will I remember it? Sure. Like, I don't know if I had to knock somebody out. It's like I see a good movie. I'm not out here like, man, is that better than Citizen Kane? Which actually is not that great in my view. But anyway, that better than Do the Right Thing? No, I loved it. It was great. I'm going to tell my friends to watch it. And that's how I felt about this game.
I just hate that that Chiefs Bills was a division round game and not the AFC Championship, because I was going in being like the winner of this game is going to win the Super Bowl. Like that was my feeling, and I came out of that feeling even more solidified in that take by the time we got to the end of it. Like that was the one part that was whack to me. It's like, man, why did this game have to be this week? And then got us to how in the hell did the Titans get the number 1 seed?
I mean, they did it to themselves. Like the Chiefs had it, and then frankly, Cincinnati who knocked them off and gave it up. Like it should have been, because that only makes the game even better. Like that's one of the reasons why you'll never forget the Patriots comeback, is because it was in the Super Bowl. Like there have been plenty of great comeback games. With the Wizards a couple days ago, gave up a 35-point lead, and no one, like it didn't even lead the show. We didn't even talk about it on Get Up until like the final hour, because the stakes matter. And to do it in those big stages when everybody is watching, I'm not like a ratings watcher, but that had to be one of the most highly rated games and enjoyable. And then for them to end it, I'm not always the most sentimental guy, but they hugged each other, Mahomes and Allen, after that, like 2 prize fighters. And it just like, it just felt like they had given it all. And it's one of those times where we all said it. It didn't feel like anybody deserved to lose, but somebody got to lose.
Dude, think about how crazy it is to consider that Justin Herbert might be the 4th best quarterback in the AFC.
Oh.
In the whole AFC, he might be 4th. Lamar Jackson might be the 3rd best quarterback in the whole conference. Like we're looking at those 4 guys, and like every year, one of you's not going to the Pro Bowl.
Yep. That's crazy. That's like how the West used to be in the NBA, where it seemed like whoever won that side was going to be the decided favorite for the champions for the NBA finals. And the same thing right now is like, and the future doesn't even look bright for anybody compared to what we just saw. And it doesn't feel like prisoner of the moment, especially not for Mahomes, because what did he have? 4 like crazy comebacks like that in the playoffs alone?
Yes.
One in the Super Bowl?
Look, and let us not forget, quite possibly the best quarterback performance I've ever seen in the Super Bowl was Mahomes last year. I don't care what the numbers or what the score tell you. When he threw that pass where he was parallel to the ground and hit him in the hands in the end zone. What?
I remember leaving that game, and everyone's experience when they were most impressed by anyone in that game, it was Patrick Mahomes. Yes. And it was his worst game in the history of his career, but we watched it. It was like, no. And that's why, I mean, I love the stats. They help to boil things down, but them things sure do lie from time to time, because that boy was special last year.
It was just like, because he was out there. Like I say, there's some teams got offensive lines. Some teams got dots, 5 dots. They were out there with 5 dots, never connecting into a line, a wall, or anything forcible against the resistance. That wasn't what it was at all.
Mahomes was slippery in that game last week. And that's what was disappointing about the Super Bowl. It's like, he need one of y'all to block. Like, he'll make the rest of your blocks okay because of the way he, like, his pocket presence, the way he moves around. And we saw it last week. They were getting through. He was just like dipping and dodging like a little pinball in there, and it just happened so regularly that it wasn't luck. Obviously, I heard you talking, was it your last show, I think, about how we don't give him the label of winner guy. Yeah. The man got too much. Like, you know who we give the label of winner guy to? We give it to guys that we don't know what else to say about.
Right.
Like, it's something to him, but we know why. Because I mean, like, winner guy is kind of BS. Like, I feel like when Tom Brady comes to Tampa Bay, there is an aura that changes the culture, and that's valuable. Maybe Patrick Mahomes has that, but like I tend to think that's not like a real thing, that winner guy shows up and knows how to win. That's what we say about guys that don't got no arm strength, you know. But Patrick Mahomes, like, there are 10 things on the list before we run out, and I think that's probably why we don't get to like winner guy.
Jimmy Garoppolo about to mess up the notion of winner guy forever if they go to the Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, man. Y'all see this? Y'all know what's going on here. We all watching the same games. I understand they didn't score an offensive touchdown in that game, and people try to tell me I was supposed to give Jimmy Garoppolo some measure of credit.
This is the only thing I want to talk about today, honestly. This is the only thing I want to talk about today is Jimmy Garoppolo, because I don't tend to like be trafficking in the hot take business, but sometimes I slip into it. And I gave a hot take on Get Up a couple days ago that got a response that I was surprised by. And I understand that saying that they should bench Jimmy Garoppolo for Trey Lance is scorching hot, but the logic is unassailable. Like, I don't care what you say. I understand that Trey Lance was playing 8-man football and is not up to NFL speed. However, the reason why you put in game manager winner guy is because he's not gonna make no mistakes. End of argument. Like, you know, he doesn't have the high end. You know, he has the capability of throwing eyes closed interceptions in the biggest game of his life. And you know that he's not going to put your team on his back. Like, I'm not saying that I have the heart or the balls to make that decision myself, because I don't. If I was Kyle Shanahan, I would not pull Jimmy G for Trey Lance. But it's a reasonable thing to suggest, considering how he tried to give away the last 2 playoff games. Like, you barely survived. It's like driving around without your seatbelt and being like, I ain't died yet.
No, that's
like put it on.
That's like driving around with the low pressure, with your low tire pressure thing coming up. Yep. Like that. It's a lot more than driving around without no seatbelt. Like, the seatbelt doesn't make your car drive good or bad, right? It just looks out for you in case something goes wrong. The thing that go wrong, right? Right. It's not like Jimmy Garoppolo's out there. It's like, damn, if somebody fumbles, he won't make the tackle. That's like riding around without no seatbelt. You know what I'm saying? Jimmy, And it's he and Matt Stafford, just so we like get this clear. It's he and Matt Stafford for a chance to go to the Super Bowl, which is just going to throw all kinds of things I've thought and said over the years, like completely and totally out of whack, right? But your thing, what the boldest quarterback switch that I can think of a coach making off the top of my head is when Jim Harbaugh sat Alex Smith down in the middle of the 2012 season and put Kaepernick in. Because I thought, like, oh, I don't know about this one, right? Like, I don't know about this. But it was a situation where he looked and was like, our team has a ceiling with this guy. This other guy has the potential to take us over the top to where it is that we need to be. You see that happen a bit more in college. That's what happened with Kelly Bryant and Trevor Lawrence when Trevor Lawrence was a freshman at Clemson. Major Applewhite and Chris Sims is another example of this, right? I thought Georgia should have gone to JT Daniels for that reason, but they created a little folk hero down there, so that ain't never going to happen, right? Garoppolo's so wild because people think game manager means you just ain't that good. And that's not what game manager means. It means Alex Smith, basically, right? Like that's the highest end game manager you got. So when I used to do High Noon, Pablo would always say they just need Jimmy G to be a high end game manager. First of all, there's only one kind of game manager. There ain't no high end. There ain't no low end. They just middle, right? Number one. Number two, a game manager, like people thought that Trent Dilfer was a game manager with the Ravens that year. No, that defense was just so cold. It didn't matter how much he tried to mess things up. But a game manager holds it in the road. When Jimmy Garoppolo messes up, we're hurtling over the overpass.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the game manager thing about Jimmy Garoppolo is interesting because to me, like you mentioned, I agree. Game manager means you're like in the middle. But the most important characteristic of a game manager is you're not going to lose the game for us. Like that's all we really want you to do is like hit the open guy and don't blow it. Do not blow it. And like, I'm fine as a fan or even as a teammate or as a coach with a guy who gives me some high-end risk along with the high-end reward. Brett Favre. Like, I'll live with Brett Favre. It's fine. We're going to turn it over some, but boy, he's going to sling that thing around. And like, sometimes he's going to have 4 touchdowns. Sometimes he's going to have 2 interceptions and no touchdowns. That's okay. My issue with Jimmy Garoppolo is he don't never do the spikes. He gives you the troughs without the peaks. And to me, like if you're going to endure the troughs and you have a team that's talented enough and smart enough and coach well enough to endure the troughs, then to me, that's the perfect opportunity for somebody like Trey Lance, who has the opportunity to survive in those troughs and also sometimes do something amazing like Kaepernick. It doesn't matter what your scheme is. He might run for 47-yard touchdown. Forget the scheme. Take the pressure off the coach. Take the pressure off the players.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be a good game because the 49ers defense has come around. Like D'Amico got to be like, hey, holla at your boy. Because I was a little worried about it early. It was not looking like it was going. Also, the fact that D'Amico Ryans is already a defensive coordinator. I don't know if that makes him crazy young or makes me crazy old, right? Like one of the two. But they got that defense together, and they have beaten the Rams 6 straight times. But now they got Jimmy Garoppolo out there with some stakes. On the other end, we got Stafford, who I thought played well in the game last week. It wasn't some all-time iconic performance, but it was see open man, hit open man, but also do things to help man get open, right? Like you get him to take a step over Jared Goff. And there's something to be said for we got to a Super Bowl with Jared Goff. That means you can win one without Matthew Stafford without us having to like go all the way into Matthew Stafford as a Hall of Famer type mode, which is going to happen if they win a Super Bowl, making him the only, I guess, one-time Pro Bowl quarterback to make the Hall of Fame. Like, they going to try, it's going to go there. But this is why they got him, and he's over here. I don't think Stafford's ever been a guy who's been working without weapons. But when Odell Beckham is your number 2, things aren't bad, guys.
That ain't bad. And you got an offensive line. I think that he's more in the vein of the high peaks that come along with some troughs every now and then.
Yes.
And he's been able to avoid those troughs up until this point. Last week's game, he didn't really have to do anything. Not last week, 2 weeks ago, Arizona, that game was over before it started. It felt like there was no pressure on him. And then the same thing kind of happened in this game. He tried to throw the ball away in the red zone. It had that interception been caught, it might have been an entirely different story, like early in that game when they had a smaller lead. And then they kind of ran away with it and they didn't ask him to do much. And you could tell that McVay was being conservative in his play calling for whatever reason. That's fine. And then he had the one play, or he had a couple plays, actually. And that's the type of stuff, as much as we hate it and as much as it's like illogical, that's the type of stuff that changed the way people talk about you and think about you. Because he did make some big time throws in those moments. And the play that he made to Cooper Kupp, if you heard him break it down, he talked about how that guy is supposed to be running a clear. Like, he's not even an intended receiver. To understand the coverage at that point, find that person with Ndamukong Suh trying to come at you. And he know Ndamukong for real. Like, they used to be on the same team. So he know that man ain't to be trifled with. I interviewed Suh one time and it was not a fun experience.
Really?
for a profile that I ended up deciding never to write. But anyway,
what happened?
It was just that bad, man. Like, I pitched the profile to the head of their communications, and he pitched it to Suh, and Suh was in for it. At least that's how I heard. Then I got there and he wasn't in the mood, or he never really had got the full pitch. So like, he just wasn't giving me nothing. So I just printed that thing as an interview because he didn't give me nothing. And it was like not a, like, I'm not here to talk. It was like a angry. And I asked some dumb questions, I guess, to start it, put him on the wrong path, but don't nobody care about when Ndamukong Suh almost ate me.
Yeah, I'm kind of amazed that he's still playing, right? Like, I thought his shoulders and stuff would have given out by now. And now he's at that point. He was a good player, but I don't think he became what a lot of people, like Aaron Donald is what people thought. And now, granted, Suh was a different type of player, but Aaron Donald was the player that people thought that like Suh was ultimately going to become. And then what he turned into is, I will always be strong as a bear.
He was, in college, he was wrecking. Like, it's rare that a defensive tackle like controls a game. He was doing that in college. Like, I don't understand why people, or I do understand why people would have expected it from him. I don't quite understand why it never came to fruition, but it came to fruition for Aaron Donald. But you know who, I just doing Trent Williams research this week, just because he's just such an incredible player. I stumbled upon some videos of him working out. I just assumed he was from Texas. Just his general, like,
size. Is he a California dude?
I think he's Colorado.
Okay.
This man was doing pull-ups. He's 6'5", 330 pounds, doing pull-ups with 90-pound weights around his waist. Like, anybody, you and me, doing pull-ups is hard for us, and we under 200 pounds. He doing it with more, like, just doing a pull-up at 300 pounds, and like, his body, it's a lot like Tyron Smith. Like, those two dudes, man.
Yeah, Tyron Smith is a different animal.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know. I can't put it into words, but just watching him play and watch him do just about anything, his general demeanor, I just want to hang out around him and watch him do all types of athletic things.
You want to see some great video of Trent Williams? Go on YouTube and look up the 2008 Oklahoma-Texas game. Except the impressive dude is Brian Orakpo eating his lunch for the entirety of the second half.
I don't believe it.
It is one of the best college football games I've ever seen. And this is when I go into like super Texas fan mode, because they had went and got Will Muschamp to be the defensive coordinator, and everything felt different. And the second half, OU had Trent Williams on one side, and they had big boy that played for Minnesota, Phil Lodeholt. They had him on the other side, and it was Sergio Kendall on one side and Orakpo on the other, and they just spent the second half teeing off on Sam Bradford. It's the most fun I've ever had watching a football game, and it took me a long time to get over that with Trent Williams and then be like, oh, he's probably going to the Hall of Fame. Okay,
incredible. You said big dude in Minnesota. Brian McKinney came to mind. I know he went to Miami, but that's another dude that he got like basketball size. You know, basketball players where you see him on TV, you're like, man, I bet he's big. And then you actually stand next to him. Like, if anybody's ever been close to Shaq, I don't care how big he look on TV. When you stand next to him, because, and the same thing for Yao, but Yao's different. Yao is like tall. Shaq is like big in a way that you like are are you sure we the same species?
Yo, like if you took your hand and like put it in water and then shook Shaq's hand, it would be rude because wet dap is rude. However, once the handshake was done, your hand would be dry. It's like putting your hand in a not a face towel.
Yeah.
The towel.
Yeah, it is. The first time I was around Shaq was when I was working at the MBPA, where it was an all-star game, and I think I was at the NFLPA, but anyway, I was at the MBPA meeting at the all-star game in LA, and Shaq I think was dating Hoops from Flavor of Love, and just the contrast made it even more shocking because she's like a normal sized human and he is not. And she's like probably even small, like she's a little short, and they were just walking together. Like that's not like, I don't mean it in a derogatory way at all, but like that's not a human. That's not a man. It's something different. That's a giant.
Well, people generally just don't understand how big, like you just mentioned, how big basketball players are. Like people misunderstand how sturdy an NBA player is in this day and age. Like even the back in the day cats, like people talk about like, man, these dudes are plumbers, man. I've been looking at them clips from the 70s of the dudes who were really good. And I've been like, you understand that them cats was out here doing that on like some Jack LaLanne, right? On some Charles Atlas without no tools.
Yep.
You know, all they had was the ground and poles on the street to create a physique.
Now LeBron spends $1 million on his body a year. Man, LeBron yelled at me in a Players Association meeting one time, and that was one of those situations where I was like, okay, like you right. Well, I mean, it's nothing from there. Like he's more powerful in every possible way. Like whatever you want is the right answer to that question.
Yeah, when the last time you think LeBron got in a fight?
Never.
Yeah, I'm just curious about that. Like, has LeBron had, like, I imagine back at Akron before they knew what he was going to turn into, he had to get into a fight or two, right?
I mean, I assume not. Like, who's going to fight him? I don't know.
There's always somebody. I mean, they was in the Jets, right?
Yeah, they were.
Somebody ain't got nothing to fear. Somebody ain't got nothing to lose.
I guess who would have fought him is not necessarily like fear. Like that's part of that also. But I guess maybe he wasn't they didn't recognize it as soon as possible. But like that guy always got respect. I remember like I was never in the projects, but like we was always hood adjacent, and like we had family and we go do whatever. And as soon as we would play sports, I was always the best athlete. Immediate respect. Nobody wanted to mess with me. Like everybody wanted to like applaud and like congratulate you. There was something about that. And I imagine that LeBron at 8 years old, giving it to 12-year-olds, they probably, maybe they got mad.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're 12 years old and you go fight the 8-year-old, you'd have lost already, right? Like you have already been defeated. Our friends at CarMax have reimagined car buying to deliver a truly flexible shopping experience that puts you in control. Because at CarMax, you have the freedom to shop online and on the lot. Once you find the right car, you can buy online with home delivery in select markets, or choose express pickup at your local CarMax. And CarMax has you covered with a 30-day money-back guarantee, up to 1,500 miles. Learn more at CarMax.com. CarMax, car buying reimagined. Been defeated. On this football, where are you at on my man Joey Burrow?
I really like Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow ain't these other dudes.
Right.
Joe Burrow ain't Josh Allen. Joe Burrow ain't Patrick Mahomes. And maybe he'll get, well, no, he will never get to those dudes just because Joe Burrow don't have the arm strength. That don't mean he can't succeed as much or more, but like Joe Burrow don't have the arm or the athleticism of, well, I mean, he's probably comparable athletically, I guess, to Mahomes, but he don't have the arm strength of those guys. He'll never get to that level. He is the perfect case for like culture guy, winner guy, because there's something different there that we can't put our finger on, and it ain't Zach. Like, sorry, Zach, you might get some coach of the year votes, but that ain't you. So go ahead and do whatever you got to do to keep that man happy, because when it's time, if you get on his nerves, then you got to go.
Yeah, let me tell you, the first time, it wouldn't be the first time I saw Joe Burrow at LSU, but the first time I like really paid attention. It was his last year there, and I forget what game I tuned into, and I tuned in early. I think this is after they had started rolling a little bit, when they realized they might have had something special that year. But I watched one possession, and I watched him move in the pocket, and I was like, oh, literally one possession. And I said, if they beat Alabama, he's winning the Heisman Trophy, and that's the number one pick, right? And it wasn't off of arm. It wasn't off of throws. It was off of how he moved. Like, when I saw how he moved, I was like, yeah, this is a no-brainer. This guy is going to be the number one overall pick in the draft. And I never know how the guys, like, I'm not big into guys that don't have strong arms. Like, you and I were both Deshaun Watson holdouts for a while. My reason was the arm. Like, I'm just like, I don't know if you can get it done at that level. That was the Vince Young thing. Vince Young didn't have an NFL arm on top of some of the other stuff, but he just didn't have that arm to make me be like, okay, that dude's going to be able to get it done. But, man, he out there throwing that ball to Jamar Chase. Like, he's doing that thing Deshaun Watson did early, which is, I'm going to throw to you a lot. You guy who's always open. Yeah, I'm going to just throw to you.
I rewatched that game this morning, and that's pretty much, we give people credit for reading defenses and being smart. Maybe Joe Burrow has that, but I refuse to believe that all of Tennessee's late game coverages were designed such that Jamar Chase was the right read. However, Jamar Chase got three of every 5 passes he threw. It felt like in the fourth quarter to Jamar Chase. And one of them was like a flat route where he was covered by 2 guys. And of course he breaks the tackle and runs up the sideline. But I mean, if you got that guy, that to me is like, so then why you hold on to the ball so long? You already know where you're going with it. Yeah. So why you put your O-line under that pressure?
Well, like, part of his play design, right? Because one thing that is interesting, because he got sacked 9 times, and part of that falls on the line. But Aaron Schatz of Football Outsiders, he puts this in his football almanac every year, and it has really affected the way I looked at football. And it really stands up to be true. Rushing yards are largely a product of the offensive line. Mm-hmm. Sacks are a product of the quarterback. The quarterback takes sacks. The guys who take a bunch of sacks take a bunch of sacks everywhere. Like Russell Wilson, you can talk about the line in Seattle, but the line hadn't been the same kind of terrible every year, right? Russell Wilson's sack numbers are the same every year. Like, a lot of that falls on him. And so with Burrow taking 9, a lot of that holding on to the ball too long. And you're right. I know where I would go with the ball every single time.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it's also like coordinator, what plays they're going to call, what they major in. But your pressure is more associated with your line play than sacks are. But still, pressure is still something that can be controlled by the quarterbacks. It's a young quarterback problem generally. And Russell, like, his best plays were when he held onto the ball. And it seems like, that's funny that we ended up there as a comparison, because I wouldn't think of them as comparisons, but it also feels like that's true for Joe Burrow. It's like a lot of his best plays are when he's buying time, wiggling around, and makes a big deep ball to Jamar Chase.
Yeah. And they still the Bengals, man. Like, that's the hardest thing in the world for me to, like, work myself around, man. These still the Bengals, and that Zach Taylor, it still ain't hitting on nothing from what I can tell. I didn't mean. I was like, so Zach Taylor coach? No. Like, we're not.
Yeah.
Because at this time, you'd be like, oh, maybe we were wrong about it. Yeah. Nah. Like, I mean, the Chiefs, I don't do a whole lot of predicting or prognosticating, but I went hard in the paint on the show with, what's his name? Mike Smith on Wednesday. And I was just like, the Bengals ain't winning that game.
Yeah.
Bengals, like, I don't know who's going to win the other game, but the Bengals ain't winning that game.
Yeah, I heard you. I agree. I think that the record for teams coming off of an overtime game in the playoffs is pretty bad, but I contend with that record. None of them teams had Patrick Mahomes playing quarterback, and I suspect that none of them teams were going up against a team that just gave up 9 sacks. Like, they did not play well enough to win that game. They won that game, but like, they didn't play at a divisional game-winning level. And somehow they managed to win again. He turned the ball over a bunch. They got sacked a ton of times. It wasn't pretty, even though it was exciting.
By the way, tangentially related to all these games, I don't know if you saw, but a little NFL nepotism action. Nathaniel Hackett got the head coaching job with the Green Bay Packers.
Not with the Packers, with the
Broncos.
Right,
he was with the Packers with the Broncos. And so this is raising people raising the question as to whether or not this means that makes it more attractive for Aaron Rodgers to go play for the Broncos. And I think you like me, I don't feel like at 38, 39 years old, I want to go to the Mahomes-Herbert division myself personally. Like that just seems like a really unpleasant way to go about things. But I mean, I figure Aaron Rodgers got to stay at this point, right? Like I can't think of a truly, if you ain't got beef with them no more, why leave? Unless you're going to retire.
Well, I mean, I think the other argument for leaving is this was the timetable. When you're in Green Bay, you got to be very thoughtful and plan long-term for your roster. And this, from what I understand, this was the timetable. This is when they had planned on making their final push and moving on to Love next year. So that I say all that to say that their roster was not constructed to survive after this season. So unless they're going to figure out some magic to keep some of these guys around, or they're just going to ball out in the draft and land a bunch of blue chippers, this team gets worse. And so being in the NFC, I think I disagree with you on the division, picking a division. Because being in the NFC, I understand, I agree, you have a better chance of getting to the Super Bowl, but you're going to have to beat these people eventually. And if I'm Aaron Rodgers, you go to where the best roster is. Like that's what you can do. You can go, you follow the Tom Brady model, the Peyton Manning model, and you go to the roster that has everything but a quarterback. And I look around the league, and I'd prefer it be in the NFC, but those teams just aren't there.
Now I want to be clear. I'm thinking less about the conference than the division, right? Like two games a year. Yeah, two games a year against Mahomes. 2 games a year against Herbert. Like Derek Carr is bringing up the rear of that division, and it's a lot of teams that would throw themselves down a flight of steps at this point if they could get Derek Carr out there. But yeah, this is a situation where you're right. I think honestly, are the Broncos the only team that's like, yo, all we need is a quarterback? Like I don't feel like there's another team
Browns
in that situation. Yeah. And if Aaron Rodgers went there, I think
I think Tennessee would consider themselves that, but they already have a quarterback that they paid. But I think the Colts would consider themselves that, but
I think I would too.
Yeah. Their defense is really good. I guess I would consider them a quarterback away also. However, there's levels to quarterback away, I think. And it just seems more attractive in Denver, the options that they have in Denver. As far as pass catchers, seems like more attractive for a quarterback.
Yeah, and I guess T.Y. Hilton's getting old over there, which makes me feel old, but he's getting a bit old.
And it's the style of defense too, I think. Like, I don't think of, and maybe this is not fair of me, I should probably look up the stats before I jump out there, but I don't think of Eberflus's defense in Indianapolis as a shutdown unit. And probably because they do a lot of the cover 2, cover 3 zone stuff. Whereas the Broncos are much more cover 4, and they can really they destroy people, and that's not the way that I think about.
Well, what's the defense going to be next year since Fangio is going to be gone?
Yeah, that's fair. It might not be the same. I mean, the talent will be there, but the coaching's not. And Fangio runs a lot of the Ravens, old school Ravens stuff. That, I mean, I don't know. Hey, we'll see. Give me the talent and let's figure it out.
Yo, I want to talk about this, though, with the Nathaniel Hackett situation. I talk about the NFL nepotism. His father, Paul Hackett, used to be the head coach at USC in Pittsburgh. In college, he was offensive coordinator for a few people in the NFL. Just basically any distinct coaching name, just go look up who his daddy is. Yes, they are kin. Like, this isn't as obvious as, like, when it's a Zampese. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, like, you look up, you know where they come from. So, you know, we can look at these different guys. Ray Lewis is a great example of this. How many head coaches did Ray Lewis make? Right? Guys that coached defense for the Baltimore Ravens and became head coaches largely because they had Ray Lewis and Ed Reed. Like, it started before Ed Reed, but still. Yep. How many of those guys were there? And it helps. If you coach a star player or somebody that can really, you know, elevate, you can get jobs. Quarterbacks that do the same thing for their offensive coordinators. Brett Favre did it for a bunch of people. Hackett is basically getting here on the basis of, all right, but my quarterbacks were sorry, though. Right? He was offensive coordinator for Buffalo with E.J. Manuel and Kyle Orton and that run of guys. And then he was the offensive coordinator for Blake Bortles when Doug Marrone had the gig down there in Jacksonville. Like, he getting to spin it. Nah, it wasn't my fault. They was bums. Oh, okay, you're right. And now get credit for Aaron Rodgers. Where he don't even call the plays up there, do he?
I don't think so. But yeah, I think that so the nepotism conversation is an interesting one because like there's two sides to it. Is yes, you get opportunities because of your name, but you also get advantages because of your name. And I think Kyle Shanahan is the best example of that. Is like Kyle Shanahan is the coach that he is because Mike Shanahan was his father, and because he got into rooms that nobody else could get into at that age. And like I imagine, but my guess is if you put people behind a screen and you interview a couple candidates, the candidate whose father, who grew up in the house of a head coach, like would probably have answers that made you feel more comfortable. Does not necessarily mean they'll be the head coach, but like they are comfortable in that world. They know that world. They understand that world. And they probably had access to ideas that other people haven't had access to before. So like that's an advantage on top of the fact that also they can just get in those rooms easily.
You know what? I agree with you in theory about it being an advantage. And Kyle Shanahan is a great example. But you know what's interesting? How many of these people's kids actually turn out to be good?
Yeah.
Right. With all those advantages and everything else. And in theory, some genetic situation, right?
Yeah,
like,
maybe.
You know, none of them actually turn out to be good. Like what it really comes down to, you and I talked about this. The only nepotism doesn't do anything for you getting a job as a player. You still have to be able to play, right? Nepotism can get you a job as a coach, but even the exposure and all of that stuff, just like with players, it comes down to raw talent. Like it still fundamentally comes back to raw talent. And that's why I look at these guys getting boosted and elevated and I see why it happens, but it's like, there's no apparent correlation to whether or not your dad was a head coach or whether you're actually good.
Yeah. Maybe Shanahan was a bad example, but to clear up what I was saying is they have an advantage in their interview.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's what I mean. It's like they are comfortable in that. They know what to say. They know what to do. They've grown up in this world. Doesn't mean that they necessarily. I mean, they should have an advantage coach it also because of the same reasons, but it doesn't seem to pan out that way. And I absolutely think you're right. You brought up D'Amico earlier. And like Brandon Staley is the example of a guy who was a coordinator for 1 year and then got a job. He coordinated the defense was really good, but that defense was also like loaded with talent. You look at what D'Amico's doing, like that defense isn't bereft of talent, but they got problems. They got problems that don't like become an issue in games. Like they got injuries throughout their secondary that somehow they still managed to get past two of the better offenses and quarterbacks, not because, as much as we love Kyle Shanahan, not because Kyle Shanahan was cooking stuff up. Like he kept both of those teams to pretty low scores on their season average, and Kyle Shanahan scored just enough. Like D'Amico Ryans is the coach that we should be looking at in that situation right now and celebrating much more than we are Kyle Shanahan.
Also, Kyle Shanahan, who has a black offensive coordinator and a black defensive coordinator.
Oh, I see you out here on your Bruce Arians.
Yeah, well, did you see this thing that happened with what's his name, Mike McDaniel?
Mm-hmm.
So Deadspin, this era of Deadspin wrote this. It wasn't a good column, but it was scathing about how everybody's talking about how quirky Mike McDaniel is and how smart he is, but he just the next other white,
Mm-hmm.
And then it turned out he was biracial, and so then everybody's like, "Oh, you got this all wrong." Dog, I looked at a picture at that man, and I just don't feel like you can hate on anybody for not peeping game. I did not yeah, you're gonna have to tell me. I appreciate the fact that you did tell me honestly, because you could be out here passing if you were so decided, right? I did not he looked like he Logic cousin on the white side.
Yeah, Logic is another trickster.
That's what I'm saying. I was like I say, the problem was that the column was bad, and I get on it for the column being bad, but I couldn't be bad as somebody after looking at a picture of the dude and assuming that he was not black, right? I couldn't knock him. But Shanahan had was Salah's Egyptian or Lebanese? I think he's Lebanese, but as defensive coordinator last year, quiet as it's kept. Shanahan out here doing some things with these guys that he's got.
I wonder if it's a conscious effort. Because like that was one of the things about Bruce Arians that impressed me is like he was open about it. Like before Tom Brady even got down there, was like, yeah, I'm making these conscious decisions. It's like I know that the talented, because I feel like that's the step that most people are not willing to take. If I am willing to like make the extension or give the benefit of the doubt, which I know is a phrase that is dangerous around here to some people. If I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt that they are not being overtly racist, then you say that this is like something that you have to make a conscious effort to address. And that's asking too much of so many people. And for Bruce Arians to do that, that's something that, I mean, it's not saying that he's a civil rights pioneer, but it's the idea that a coach is making this decision while they have other things that they feel are more pressing is impressive to me. And I'm a Kyle Shanahan fan because of the way he coaches, and his daddy was cool, but that would make me more of a Kyle Shanahan fan.
Oh, you was cool with his daddy?
I mean, he was cool enough. He drafted me. I think the biggest thing that made me like him was this sounds pretty sad. Sounds like Stockholm syndrome. That when they decided to trade me against my will, he gave me two options and let me pick which team I could go to. And I was like, you ain't had to do that.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. You know, it's been an interesting last few years with Mike. I didn't know what it was. Yeah, I didn't know what it was before. I had no concept of his get down. I do love that Fred Smoot calls him the Red Lobster.
Oh man, I told you. Oh, play the music.
Thank you for your patience. A representative from the right time will be with you shortly.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a deal. That's a thing. So we both here. We got we go with Kansas City, and I don't think we made a call. You go to San Francisco in the other game?
Nope.
You going to Rams?
I'm going Rams. I think that defense is that front is going to be too much.
No, at what point if you Kansas City, you're like, why we stay having to play Super Bowl road games?
Yeah, that is what's going to happen again. That's not fair, but
it shouldn't be allowed.
Yeah. So you did? You not going to do any guessing?
Oh no, I'm going Chiefs, and I'm gonna have to go with the Rams, man. I just can't be picking Jimmy Garoppolo, dog. I just can't do it. And I don't know why people get so mad at us for thinking that Jimmy's sorry, like they don't be watching. Like, I can't understand how you invested in that team and you don't think he's sorrier than we think.
Yeah, I don't get that either. I would, especially, I understand it's your guy. You want to defend your guy, but he hurting you more than he hurting me. I ain't never lost no sleep over a Jimmy G interception. My heartbeat did not go up when he was throwing those balloon balls over to the sideline trying to get a pick six. I was fine with it. It didn't hurt me at all. I just was looking like, damn shame. Boys out there working their asses off, and he trying to throw it away.
Yo, the one good thing about the way Shanahan runs an offense, though, is that his balloon balls do not become another slang term for the balloon ball, which is the hospital ball, the ambulance ball, right? Like that is, I was thinking about this too. And I guess, you played as this was all changing. Hey man, one thing we don't never say about a receiver no more is he makes catches over the middle, because everybody can go over the middle now. That used to be a badge of honor going over the middle. Jimmy Garoppolo, somebody on his own team would have killed him by now. Like I remember when they benched EJ Manuel in Buffalo, it was because of hospital balls. They're just like, oh no, these cats ain't gonna keep doing this.
Yeah, I don't know what Kyle's offense would look like if they hadn't changed those rules. Because like it feels like that's the only place, and maybe it's in part because of Jimmy's arm, but that's the only place they attack is the middle of the field. Because he don't want Jimmy throwing those deep out routes because maybe he can't get it there.
Nah, that's the thing. That's the pick six right there. The guys who struggle with the out routes. Did the Bucs ever go back to throwing out routes with Tom Brady after they gave up on that last year?
I think so. Yeah, I feel like I have some recollection of some deep comebacks, and that's like 20-yard comeback. That's going to take crossfield. That's going to take some arm strength. That's just not in the playbook for certain guys.
Yeah, he's just like, nah, who was that? Matt Schaub used to always stay getting hemmed up on them out routes. Kirk Cousins, good to get hemmed up on the out route. Like that's what gets DBs in the Pro Bowl.
Yep, that's going to get you picked. I had a pick against I think it was Brady Quinn a while ago that it was so poorly thrown that I couldn't score. Like I broke on it. I broke past it. I broke from inside out past the out route and had to catch it on my back shoulder. And then dude jumped on me. And I was like, this gonna be 6. Oh, you missed me. I could have caught that in stride if you would have put it on target.
Cost you, buddy.
I know.
That's Domonique Foxworth. Check him out on Get Up. Check him out on First Take. Check him out at theundefeated.com. My man, appreciate it as always.
Always. And check me out on Off the Record.
Yeah,
back on the record.
Back on the
My
record
bad.
with Bob Costas on HBO Max. And ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us here on The Right Time. We do this 3 times a week. Gabe Bassane and Adi Khan handling things behind the scenes. Thank you, gentlemen. Remember, follow The Right Time. Subscribe on YouTube. Rate us, review us, give us 5 stars. You only give us 4 stars. I'm inclined to believe you are a hater. We'll talk to you guys in a couple of days. Take it easy.